I'm Klein, and this is my garden nestled in the heart of North Devon, 15 miles from the coast and surrounded by this tranquil and beautiful countryside. I've taken care of my garden for 30 years. I know every inch of this place and every plant. Each season brings its own delights. There are plenty of challenges too, but that's what makes it so exciting and so fulfilling. It's late spring and the whole garden's exploding into life. Over the next half hour, I'll be enjoying the bounty of this season and following the garden's rush into early summer. May and June are the time of exuberance, of lushness. Everywhere you look, things are surging forwards. You almost feel as though the rest of the year has just been a preparation for this moment. And yet at the same time, there's so much to do to prepare for other seasons yet to come. But it's hugely important to grab the moment, to enjoy it, just to stop and stare and take it all in. May is all about abundance. It's all about wallowing in this wonderful effervescence. The branches are laden with blossom and the hedgerows are thick with hawthorn blossom, pure white and sparkling. And all along the ditches, cow parsley spumes in a great wave. And leaves are translucent. You just know that they've never been seen before. They're fresh and bright and brilliant, but so tender as well. About woodlands being magical, and they are. Look at this flower. Just look at that. I think everybody has their favourite kind of environment. My mum used to love being on top of mountains, and she used to love feeling the wind in her face. But what I love is to be deep inside a wood. It's so tranquil and it makes you forget everything. You can almost hear the earth breathing. I think Devon woodlands particularly have an extra sort of magic. The climate here is so moist and so conducive to all the things that love to live in woods. For a start, to the trees and the plants that carpet the woodland floor. Look at the bluebells and these magical ferns. Ferns adorn my garden. I just love them. They're very special plants. They have their own kind of secret lives. They're quite different from other plants. They're probably the reason I came to Devon in the first place. All the hedgerows were so thickly thronged with ferns. I couldn't believe it. And now my garden at Cottage is the same. It's now that the woodland garden reaches its zenith. There've been a succession of plants, starting with snowdrops, then hellebores and primroses. Now it's the turn of the grand finale, bluebells, aquiledias, woodruff and foxgloves. Foxgloves really fit into my garden, but I prefer the white ones. All forms of Digitalis purpurea are biennial. In the first year they grow a rosette, but in the second put on a towering flower spike. They set seed and then they die. Every year I sow my collected seed in either a nursery bed or a tray, but it doesn't always come true. When the seedlings are still young, you can spot which will be pink. There's a sort of redness, a purpleness running through the stems. So I rogue those out and I grow them on and put them in the bottom of my native hedge. The white ones have much softer, pure green foliage. It's paler too. These I pot up and grow on, and I plant them out in the final flowering position either in the autumn or in the following spring. And the whole cycle starts again. Every year produces its triumphs and tragedies, and I certainly wasn't expecting this one. I've been turfing out some of my exotics that are bound for the hot border, but my beautiful red banana just hasn't made it. Look at it. I kept burying down further and further, just hoping it was all right. But this is the old root ball, and there's nothing here anymore. It's just gone. And all this dead foliage, which I was hoping to strip off and reveal these wonderful new shoots. And look at this base. I mean, it's actually squidgy. Oh, such a tragedy. I've had these for about 4 years, and each year I've protected them over the winter and then put them outside. And they've been so dramatic, you know, it's instant drama really, and glamour too. But it's not very glamorous now, is it? Oh. Just look how leafy everything's got. But this morning, there was actually frost on the field. But I'm determined to get to grips with my hot borders. Let me introduce you to them. They're not so much borders as beds, really, because borders implies that they've got a back and a front, and these are very three-dimensional. You've actually got these two completely sort of separate beds joined together with this box, and isn't it looking smart? So you've got constant sort of backdrop and looks through, but all the plants in here are hot coloured. There are things that start the show, you know, like this rheum here. And that foliage stays for ages, but look at this. Look at this cheeky Lobelia tuber. It's poked its way right up under this sleeper and it's pushing out. It's brilliant that it survived. But now I'm going to get on with planting. On one plant in particular, it's this fine Rudbeckia. It's a big yellow daisy, doesn't come out until later on, at which time it will accompany all these cannas and dahlias, and the whole thing is going to be a seething tropical mass. And I'm going to break it up and divide it to really thicken up this line. Now, I couldn't work in here at all, as you can see, because the hedge sparrow's nest was in there. But now I feel I can do whatever I like, because the birds have fledged. So I'm going to start off with this Rudbeckia. Now, the whole idea is to link this side of the garden with the other side, particularly with the brick garden over here. This is a poppy called Beauty of Livermere, or it used to be called that. It's now called Goliath Group. And it's magnificent, great towering stems with big red poppies. And you wouldn't believe that this is the same thing. Even though this has started to make good taproot down here, those roots want to get into the ground. They're absolutely dying to get in there. Do you know those stems have grown a foot in the last week, and those fat buds are already starting to swell there. I'll tell you what, if I don't stake these poppies now, it could be a disastrous start to the hot borders. Well, this is my raised bed. I built this maybe 25 years ago because I wanted to be able to grow some of the plants that I just couldn't grow anywhere else in the garden. Things like the pulsatilla and these eryngiums. And one of the major features in here were 3 of these lovely phlomis. It's Phlomis lanata, meaning woolly. They've been here for several years and they form the sort of backbone of this bit. But in the last winter, they succumbed, they died. But fortunately for me, on this occasion, I'd actually propagated some more. It's something I try and do with anything that's on the sort of edge of tenderness. So I'm going to put these 3 in here. I mean, I just adore this place. It basks in the sun all day long. And plants like that love to live here. And so does this little tiny erigeron. This is Carvinscianus. It's a Mexican plant. And in full summer, you can't even see these stones at all. It's just full of this great curtain of white and pink daisies. Well, I thought last winter had done for it, but look, it's reappearing already. And this also provides a perfect home for my family of lizards. They love coming out here, and if you're very, very quiet on a hot, sunny day, you can watch them just basking in the sun. The welcome hum of insects has returned to the garden. Somehow the garden's not alive until you hear that sound. My husband Neil is really keen on bees, and last year a swarm attached itself to this tree. Completely spontaneously, we were thrilled to bits, but it was late, the swarm was small, and after that brutal winter, the whole lot died. Well, Neil's determined to carry on, and so am I. We really want honeybees in the garden. We've invited beekeeper Phil Chandler to come and show us how to keep bees the natural way. Can I lend a hand? You look very competent. What a wonderful design. It's intriguing. But I'll tell you what was intriguing me. You brought the bees yesterday. Why did you do that?
Mainly to give them a day to settle down and to orientate themselves to this location, because of course they've been used to being somewhere completely different.
So we're going to put this hive exactly where the travelling box is?
That's right. Even a couple of feet will make a difference.
So it's like a sort of trough, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's very simple. It's just a long box. This particular design has sloping sides, and we just use these top bars, which is why it's called a top bar hive, and they sit across the width of the hive, and the bees build their comb underneath. Those in place. Comb, which is remains of an old frame. And there again, this is a lot of brood on here. Here you can see the beginnings of a natural comb. That's how they start building their comb. And you can see, as long as you remain calm, that the bees tend to stay calm as well. Now this next one has got 2 combs. They're building on a single bar.
Will they
And this is-
join into one?
They will eventually, yes. And this is worker-size comb. You can see by the size of the cell, that's the size that worker brood will emerge from. Ah, there's the queen. Queen is somewhat longer than the other bees.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Long abdomen, and that's where she stores all her eggs to be.
I suppose you shouldn't really interfere with her, touch her at all.
I have a rule which is never to touch a queen unless absolutely necessary, because you don't want to get her smelling like human. Now, if you could take the duster and just gently dust over the tops of the bees, that will just keep them calm. The idea is that you coat the bees with a light layer of icing sugar, and then they immediately go and start grooming each other. It smells much nicer than smoke does.
That all seemed to go very, very smoothly, didn't it? They look quite at home.
Yes, the bees were very well behaved, and I think that went very well, considering how much they've been disturbed.
It's June, and late spring is a thing of the past. The frosts are gone, and we're gliding into glorious summer. But just typical. Look at those clouds. How's that for glamour? That Chelsea nail job didn't last long, did it? Do you know, the last week in May, every single year for the last 20 years, I've been away from my garden and going to Chelsea. And when I come back, everything's transformed. It's totally different, and I always miss that wonderful time. But look what's here to greet me when I get back. This lovely oriental poppy. Isn't it magical? And I'm so glad that I got in there and staked it before I left. But look here. You can tell, can't you? Do you love these sort of elegantly curved stems? This plant was almost prostrate when I came back. I hadn't got round to it, and it was just lying along the ground. But put these stakes in as a sort of temporary measure and just tied this around them. But what I need to do both with these and all these other stakes, now that I see where those poppy buds are about to explode, is to reduce them, to take all this ugliness away. Take this down so I'm actually not aware of these stakes at all. And we can just enjoy these buds. And this Cotinus, I pruned this earlier on, and it really is looking pretty good. But if you look right through the bush, there are these stems which just didn't grow. I pruned them very nicely according to the book, but to make the most of it, I've got to take off all these little pieces right the way through the shrub, then we can just enjoy it. And what a beautiful background it makes for these poppies. Just look at that little appearing through the sort of mist. And it's got its hat on. Oh! Now it can just expand. Perfect place for it. One minute it's spring, and suddenly it's summer, with all its glorious abundance. And nowhere is this more apparent than in my daughter Alice's garden. And her garden is packed full of all those glorious plants that just remind me of Alice. There are crimsons, there's pink, there's white, and everything's soft and beautifully sort of mounded. You just wait till this white phlox starts to flower. That's Alice's grandma's plant, and it's all through this garden. But meanwhile, look at these astrantias. There are astrantias of all sorts of different kinds in here. Some of them white, some of them dark, but this probably has to be my favourite. It's Astrantia Roma, and it's a sterile hybrid, so it keeps on flowering. And the place is full of white geraniums, right from spring into the autumn, but during June, this is the one that's at its best. It's Geranium sanguineum alba. And if you've got to choose one plant that typifies Alice's garden, it's this lovely rose. It's Rosamundi, and Alice's second name is Rosamund, and they were planted just for that reason. It's got these gorgeous pink and white petals that change all the time, masses of buds, and it's at its best for her birthday month, June. Just lovely. A few herbaceous plants, like oriental poppies, acanthus and Cranby cordifolia, have long fleshy roots, which make them perfect candidates for creating new plants from root cuttings. Early in the year, I exposed some of the roots on this Cranby. I severed them from the mother plant and cut them into short sections. I inserted them into a good gritty potting compost. After 3 or 4 weeks, top growth began to show. Once this crown of healthy new shoots has developed, new roots begin to develop afterwards. At this stage, they can be pushed out, potted up and grown on. With a bit of luck, the new plants will be ready to plant out in the autumn, or failing that, in the following spring. And after a couple of summers, look at what you get. These magnificent towering stems covered with a myriad of tiny little flowers. It's so light and fluffy. It's the pure essence of the season. This gravel track runs right the way through the garden, and it's the source of all sorts of wonderful plants that seed themselves freely everywhere. And I can remember the very first time I saw something seed itself. It was a geranium up by the kitchen. I couldn't believe it, but now they're everywhere. And sometimes these plants will put themselves into the most beautiful arrangements, things you could never replicate. You could never do this sort of thing yourself. There's a whole little garden here, you know, full of alchemilla and beautiful geraniums, and then this great fennel in the centre, this lovely feathery thing. And I just leave them because not only are they not in everybody's way, but, you know, you enjoy them, they're lovely. But sometimes they're on a path or in a place where they're not going to thrive and flourish. And then you can get in there with your little fork. This is Geranium nodosum in here, shade-loving geranium. And just tuck it into a pot straight away. Put some gravel on the top of it. And that's it. I'll give it a good water later on. There's oodles of them here, absolutely masses. Such bounty. I mean, that's what the garden gives you. Beautiful big grass snake. I'm just pulling this plastic up because I want to water it thoroughly, because this is where we grow all these climbing pumpkins, these great big trailing things. It gets really, really warm, and that's obviously why this snake's come in here. I wonder if she's laying her eggs. Oh. Compost is at the heart of all I do in my garden. Making it is a never-ending cycle. This is my present compost heap. I've been collecting all this lovely green stuff, fabulous nettles and all the sort of leftovers from my chard to put on this heap, and it's a fast heap. It's only been built during the last few weeks, and this is what I always do in summer. And I'm putting this green stuff on to really speed everything up. And underneath I've got a sort of lovely brown layer with all manner of stuff. There are twigs and there's also layers and layers of muck. When I shove my hand under there, I can feel heat. It really is beginning to hot up. I mean, compost is just, you know, it's the lifeblood of my garden. I just couldn't grow things the way I do without it. But I'm just going to over the top. I'm going to spread it around, make a thick layer of it, and then later on, as soon as I've got it, there'll be more brown stuff on the top too. So those nettles were a bit they're a bit stingy, but I'm all right actually. And nettles are one of the best ingredients because they bring all sorts of trace elements up from the soil underneath them. But I'll tell you what, some of this chard looks good enough to eat, doesn't it? Perhaps you ought to have a bit of this for supper. Yesterday was the summer solstice, the longest daylight hours of the entire year. But during May and June, the garden has changed immeasurably. It's become an entirely different place. At the beginning of May, you could stroll around this way and that, but now the garden encompasses you. It draws you in. Every step you take, you're touched by plants. You can feel them caressing you. And the whole place is full of wondrous texture. Lovely, gorgeous, soft undulating growth and beautiful frothy flowers. And the scent is like nothing else. The scent of honeysuckle and hesperus pervades the air, especially in the evening as the sun sinks lower. Although I adore this time of year, I'm looking forward to July and August, all those dog days of summer, the real sort of explosion that you get at that time of year. But for now, this is where I want to be.